Hi guys, welcome to week 8. It is online learning today and online learning tomorrow. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes taking you through some important points that you need to know because this will be very important for your exam, and you won't really be able to do the activities that I have planned out for you and put on Google Classroom if you don't go through these definitions that we're about to learn today. So only two new definitions that we're adding. Learning intentions. So we're looking at examining how purpose drives textual meaning, and we are continuing to analyze text types. Okay. Our success criteria. You need to be able to recall the four textual analysis terms. So they are audience, purpose, text type. We haven't got to meaning yet, but meaning will be something we start to look at in week 10. Today it's about examining the author's purpose. What is the author's purpose? Do I understand what the point of the text is and what the author is trying to get across to me? And lastly, in this next stimulus text today, like we did with the Jeremy Lin text, you need to be able to identify who the target audience is, so who the text is being aimed at, what the point of the text is, the purpose, what kind of text type is this as well. Okay, so that's really what we're getting to for this lesson. Now, a question. Have you ever read a text before? Any type of text. It can be a tabloid, perhaps it's a newspaper article, and thought to yourself, yeah, this has kind of been written with a particular agenda. Could even be a post on social media, all right? Or you could have read it and maybe thought, I can see here that the writer very clearly thinks this. If you've ever perhaps read a text before and been able to go, yeah, I know what they're trying to say here, or I know what they're trying to get me to believe, then basically what that means is that you understand that authors write with an intended purpose. Any author is always going to write with a particular agenda in mind. They never just sit down and write for fun. There's always a point that they're trying to get across to us in non literary texts, okay? And often that purpose is to persuade readers to accept a particular, what we call, ideology. Write down the word ideology if you've never heard of it before, and even if you have, I want you to write it down because that's the first important point that we're going to look at today. But before we understand ideology, bias. You've all heard of the word bias before. Without jumping on Google, I want you to write a definition for me in your book. What is bias? Write your definition in your own words for me. So press pause on this video if you like, and writing a definition. Okay, so when we think of bias, I want you to have a look at your own definition here. We often think um, that bias means that you have bias towards or in favor of something or somebody. If you had a definition that said maybe it's having a tendency to show a favor towards a group of people, or it's an unfair bias towards people, an unfair favoring of somebody, making unfair judgments, maybe perhaps something about biased information. If that was your definition, cross it out for me, because that's probably our biggest understanding of bias, that it has a negative connotation. Um, we often say, well, that's bias, and we think of bias as a negative thing. I want you, if you had a negative definition for bias, just to pause on that. It's not wrong. It is one definition of bias. But in order for you to understand ideologies, here's what you need to understand. Write this down for me. The definition that I really want you to get is that bias is really just the skewed presentation of a particular story from a particular ideological position. So I'll say it again and write this down. This bias is the skewed presentation of a story from a particular ideological position. And as you can see on the diagram here with the justice scales, it is tipped to one side. Okay? The word skewed, if you don't know what the word skewed is, please look it up. What does it mean, skewed? What does skewed mean? Skewed, guys, if I had a pair of glasses on and I tilt them to one side, it means that this eye perhaps doesn't have the same vision as this eye, okay? Skewed means unbalanced, unpositioned, okay? So a skewed presentation of a story means it's a presentation that's kind of taken a particular angle, a story that's taken a particular angle, all right? And when we look at ideologies and the purpose of the text, that's really what you need to understand with bias. It's not always a negative thing. It just means that the story is told from a particular perspective. Okay? So, what is an ideology then? An ideology, please write this down, it's a set of beliefs and values that a person has. And usually, that person will have those values without any factual reasoning. So, these are ideas, and ideology comes from that word ideas or idea. These are ideas that we have and beliefs that we have about our own particular, I guess, opinion on topics. So you might have a particular opinion on climate change. You might have a particular opinion on the idea of Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, on violence against women, on the gender pay gap, on whether or not detention should be included in schools, on whether or not we should have online learning for the rest of our schooling life. You will have opinions on everything, and sometimes it is based on, or not based on, I should say, any facts. Sometimes it's based on the way you've been raised, something that happened to a family member of yours, something that happened to you. And so ideologies are our own opinions that are just based on our beliefs. There's no fact to it. It's just how we feel towards certain topics. Okay? So, ideology, bias, your two terms for today's lesson. So, what on earth does this have to do with audience purpose, text type, and language features? I'm going to just show you this now, okay? So, this is what I showed you last week. I want to go back to the Jeremy Lin text for a second. Just to recap, what you need to know is all authors write with an intended purpose, okay? They will always write with an intended purpose. Secondly, that purpose is generally to persuade us to accept a particular ideology. What's an ideology again? It's a belief or an idea that we have without any factual reasoning. Okay? So let me just move myself off the screen because I'm not important, but what I have to say is, therefore, guys, if we figure out what the purpose of the text is, quite often it means that we can figure out what the author's ideology is, what their beliefs are, and what the author's trying to get us to believe. Okay? Their point will generally possibly be something that they believe and they're trying to get us to believe or persuade us to believe, especially in tabloid texts, which is what we're looking at for this term. So if we figure out the purpose of a text, quite often we can understand what the author was trying to get us to believe or sway us to try and accept. Okay? So what I would like you to do for the Jeremy Lin text this morning is I want you to answer, go back to your Jeremy Lin text that you've annotated. Question 1, why did the author write this text? Let's go back and review the purpose. But question 2 now, what ideologies did the author have that might have influenced the text itself and the way that they wrote the text and what the overall purpose of the text was? Okay, so what beliefs or what values or what ideas or what opinions did the author have that could have influenced what the point of the text was? Whatever you said the purpose of the text was, how has the author's opinion shaped that purpose? Lastly, where did you find some evidence of the author's beliefs, ideologies in the text? I want you to find 3 examples of where it's really clear that you can see what the author's ideologies are. Ideology just means their opinions or their beliefs. So can I get you to take about 10 minutes to answer these questions in a Google Doc or in your English book if you prefer, okay? Getting up your Jeremy Lin text again and answering those 3 questions. You can pause this video for now. So, year 10, when we look back now at what the purpose of the text is, I have said the purpose of the text, so the tabloid aims to defend and victimize NBA player Jeremy Lin and portray him as a classy hero. That's the purpose for me. Now, I'm going to give you my justification of that. I'm saying by recapping and highlighting the unjust actions taken against Jeremy Lin in the past, and that's what the entire article really does. It positions the audience to sympathize or to feel sympathetic towards Lin before the point of the story even begins. When I show you my annotations in a moment, you will see that literally the first 2 pages of the text is just them highlighting all the things that have happened in the past to Jeremy Lin that were unfair. So it's persuading us, but it's also informing us, all right? The 2 purposes there. Okay. The tabloid praises Lynn for his classy and professional comeback towards those who criticise his dreadlock appearance, portraying him as a cultural hero, and it shows his critics as villains. Okay, that's me giving you more information. Now, how do I know this? Let's have a quick look at the evidence that I have. Okay, I am going to let you read the evidence yourself here, but I've just screenshotted a few areas where I can see the purpose of the text, the persuasion, and the ideologies that the author has coming through. Okay, snaps back in the best way is one. And so, to conclude, what I can say is the author's bias towards Jeremy Lin's unfair treatment is very clear in the tabloid. And these examples that I've got on the screen here clearly show that the text aims to defend and victimize NBA player Jeremy Lin, to shame his critics, and portray him as a classy hero. Now, how did I get all of that? What I would like you to do is go to the next activity, okay? You still need to have your Jeremy Lin article up on the screen. And what I would like you to do is watch my video of my annotations. I'm going to take you through how I analyze a text. I want you to add my annotations, my language features that I find, to your own text if you miss some of those, okay? And we're going to work through this together.